My wife said, "Once the divorce hits, I'll get half of everything, even the RV." I replied, "Okay," wondering how long she'd been studying my assets, until their conversation revealed a plan that went far beyond. So I finally figured out what my wife was really planning with my RV, and honestly, it took catching her red-handed to see how calculated the whole thing was. I'm 31, work as a freelance graphic designer, mostly from home, but sometimes I travel to meet clients or work on location shoots. Last year my grandfather passed away and left me about $150K. After taxes and paying off some debt, I had enough left to buy something I'd been dreaming about for years, a really nice RV that I could convert into a mobile office. I spent about $80K on this beautiful 35-foot Class A motorhome, then put another $15K into customizing it with a full design setup, multiple monitors, professional lighting, high-end computer equipment, the works. It's basically a studio on wheels, and it's let me take on projects I never could before. I can work anywhere, travel to clients, even do extended shoots in remote locations. My wife Reese was excited about it initially. She's 29, works as a marketing coordinator at a local firm, and she seemed to love the idea of having this awesome RV for adventures and travel. For the first few months, everything was great. We took a few weekend trips. She enjoyed the novelty of it, and I was getting more work than ever because clients loved the mobile studio concept. But then something shifted. Reese started asking to use the RV when I wasn't traveling for work. First, it was for a girls' weekend with her coworkers. Then she wanted to take it for a company retreat. Each time, I had to explain that this wasn't just a recreational vehicle. It was my primary workspace, with about $30K worth of equipment permanently installed. "I can't just lend it out," I told her. "It's like asking to borrow someone's entire office. Plus, I have client calls scheduled, deadlines to meet. If something happened to the equipment, I'd be screwed." She seemed to understand at first, but the requests kept getting more persistent and more demanding. 2 weeks ago, she told me she wanted to take the RV for a work retreat that I couldn't attend because of client commitments. "Just rent a regular RV," I suggested. "I'll even pay for it. But I can't let you take my office when I've got 3 major projects running." That's when she exploded. "You're being completely selfish," she said. "It's both of ours now that we're married. I shouldn't have to ask permission to use something that belongs to our household." I tried to explain again about the work equipment, the client schedules, the fact that this wasn't just a toy but my livelihood, but she wasn't hearing it. "You act like I'm some stranger who can't be trusted with your precious RV," she said. "I'm your wife. We're supposed to be a team." The fight went on for 2 hours. She kept insisting that marriage meant shared ownership of everything, that I was being controlling by keeping the RV to myself, that she needed it for work purposes, just as much as I did. But here's the thing that's been bothering me since that argument. During the fight, Reese made several references to specific features of the RV's interior layout: the custom desk setup, the location of the equipment mounts, even the modified storage compartments I'd had built in. "I know you have that whole elaborate setup in the back bedroom area," she said at one point. "I'm not going to touch your precious equipment." The problem is, I never showed her the detailed interior modifications. She'd been in the RV a few times early on, but always briefly, and this was before I'd done most of the custom work. I certainly never gave her a tour of where everything was installed or explained the technical setup. So how did she know about the back bedroom conversion? How did she know about equipment mounts I'd installed just last month? When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, said she'd been researching RV layouts online to understand what I was working with. But the details she mentioned weren't generic. They were specific to my custom modifications. I've been going over that conversation in my head for 2 weeks, and something doesn't add up. Either Reese has been in my RV without my knowledge, or someone's been giving her very detailed information about the interior layout. Both possibilities make me uncomfortable, but I can't figure out which one is worse. Update 1. So I looked into Reese's mysterious knowledge about the RV, and what I found has completely changed how I see my marriage. First, I called my buddy Colt, who's also a freelancer and sometimes helps me with bigger projects. I asked him if he'd noticed anything weird when I was out of town on that client shoot 3 weeks ago. "Funny you should ask," he said. "I was driving past the storage facility where you keep the RV, and I saw Reese's car there. Thought it was strange since you were in Denver and she was supposed to be at work. My blood went cold. The RV storage facility is about 20 minutes from our house, in the opposite direction from Reese's office. There's no reason she'd be there unless she was accessing the RV. Did you see her? I asked. No, just her car, but it was there for a few hours. I noticed it when I drove by around noon, and it was still there when I came back around 4 p.m. I have a friend who works security at the storage facility, so I called him and asked if I could review the camera footage from that day. He's not supposed to show customers the recordings, but he let me take a look as a favor. What I saw made my stomach drop. The footage showed Reese arriving around 11 a.m. with someone else, a tall guy with dark hair who I didn't recognize at first. They went to my RV together, and she let them in with the spare key I'd given her for emergencies. They spent 3 hours inside. 3 hours. But here's the part that really destroyed me. When they came out, the guy was carrying a blanket and what looked like a wine bottle. They were laughing, touching each other casually, and when they got to their cars, he kissed her. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss. The kind you give someone you're involved with. I sat in that security office staring at footage of my wife having an affair in my RV, using the space I'd built for my work as a private getaway for her and some other guy. When I got home that night, I asked Reese directly, "Have you been to the storage facility recently?" "No," she said without hesitation. "Why would I go there?" "Just wondering. Someone mentioned seeing your car there." "Must have been a mistake," she said. "I've been swamped at work. Barely have time for anything else." She looked me right in the eyes and lied about something I had video evidence of. I spent the weekend trying to figure out who the guy was. I went through the footage more carefully and got a better look at his face, then spent way too much time going through Reese's social media connections. Finally found him. Knox Harlan. According to his LinkedIn, he's a real estate agent here in town, and according to his Facebook relationship history, he and Reese dated for 2 years before she and I got together. My wife is having an affair with her ex-boyfriend, and they're using my RV as their private love nest. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that she's been lying to my face about it while simultaneously demanding more access to the RV for her work retreats. I think Reese has been planning to take my RV for more than just weekend getaways. I think she's been planning to take it permanently. Edit. A lot of people are asking why I don't just confront her immediately. I want to understand the full scope of what's happening before I make any moves. If she's been planning this for months, there might be more I need to know about. Edit 2. I'm going to install a hidden camera in the RV. I know that sounds paranoid, but I need to know what they're really doing in there and whether this is just an affair or something bigger. Update 2. So I installed the camera and discovered that the affair is actually the least of my problems. What's really happening is way more calculated and devastating than just cheating. I set up a small, hidden camera in the RV's main living area. Nothing invasive, just something that would show me who was coming and going and what they were doing in my space. Then I waited. Last Wednesday, Reese told me she needed the RV for that work retreat she'd been talking about. Said her company was doing a team-building weekend and they needed mobile accommodations. "Are you sure your company can't just rent something?" I asked, testing her story. "They specifically want to use ours because it's so well equipped," she said. "It'll look good for my career if I can provide something this nice." I pretended to agree, but told her I needed to remote in for client calls, so I'd be monitoring the RV's internet connection. That part was true. I did have calls scheduled, but it also meant I could check the camera feed. What I saw on that camera destroyed any remaining trust I had in my marriage. Knox showed up Friday evening, and they were immediately intimate. Not just physically, but in the way they moved around each other. Like they'd been doing this for a long time. They clearly knew where everything was, how everything worked. Like they'd spent significant time in the RV before. But the conversation I overheard was what really made my blood run cold. "How much longer do we have to keep this up?" Knox asked. "Not much longer," Reese replied. "I've been building the case that he's financially controlling. Once I file, I should be able to get at least half of everything, including this." Knox was walking around the RV like he was appraising it. "You're sure he bought this with inheritance money?" "Yeah, but he can't prove it was separate property. We've been married for 4 years, and he's made modifications to it during the marriage using our joint income." My lawyer says that makes it marital property. My hands were shaking as I listened to my wife discuss how to steal my RV in a divorce. What about his business equipment? Knox asked. That's trickier, but a lot of it was purchased after we got married. I can argue that I supported him building his business, so I'm entitled to half the value of what it generated. They spent the next hour planning my financial destruction. Knox, it turns out, wasn't just her ex-boyfriend. He was her advisor on how to maximize a divorce settlement. His real estate experience meant he knew about property law, asset valuation, and community property rules. Once you get the RV, we can sell it and split the money, he said, or keep it and travel together like we always talked about. I love that you're thinking long-term, Reese said, but let's get through the divorce first. I need to be careful about how this looks. I watched my wife and her ex-boyfriend plan to rob me blind while having sex in the workspace I'd built with my grandfather's money. But that wasn't the end of it. Over the weekend, I decided to dig deeper into our finances, something I probably should have been paying closer attention to all along. Going through our joint checking account, I found transfers I didn't remember authorizing. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $800 there, but they added up. Over the past 6 months, Reese had moved about $15,000 from our joint account to her personal account. When I looked at the transfer notes, they all said things like marketing course, or professional development, or work training. I'd been so busy with client projects that I hadn't been monitoring our day-to-day expenses closely. Reese had been stealing from our joint account to fund her affair. The money wasn't going to professional development. It was going to hotel rooms, dinners, weekend trips, and probably other activities I didn't want to think about. My wife had been robbing our household to pay for her relationship with another man, while simultaneously planning to rob me of my business assets in a divorce. When I talked to my mom about the situation, without giving her all the details, she mentioned something that made my stomach drop even further. Reese asked me some interesting questions last time she was here, my mom said. Wanted to know about Grandpa's inheritance, how much it was, whether you had documentation showing it was separate from marital assets, that sort of thing. When was this? I asked. Maybe 2 months ago? She said she was helping you with some financial planning and wanted to make sure she understood your assets correctly. Reese had been researching how to steal my inheritance for months. This wasn't an affair that had spiraled into divorce planning. This was a calculated, long-term strategy to take everything I'd built and inherited, using her ex-boyfriend's expertise to maximize what she could get away with. I felt sick realizing that the woman I'd been married to for 4 years had been systematically planning to destroy my financial life while pretending to love me. But I still didn't know how deep this went. Edit. For those asking why I don't just divorce her immediately, I need to understand the full scope of what she's planned before I make any legal moves. If there's more I don't know about, I could be walking into traps she's already set. Edit 2. I'm documenting everything now. Screenshots, bank records, camera footage. If she wants to play legal games, I'm going to be ready. Final update. So I exposed everything, and the fallout was swift and absolute. But what I learned about the full scope of their scheme was even worse than I'd imagined. Before I confronted Reese, I wanted to understand exactly how deep this conspiracy went. I reached out to Tara, one of Reese's co-workers, with whom I'd always gotten along well. I hope this doesn't put you in an awkward position, I told her, but I need to ask you about Reese's work retreat this weekend. Tara looked confused. What work retreat? The company team building thing she needed the RV for. Jace, we didn't have any company retreat. Reese took vacation days this weekend. Said she was going to a family thing. My blood went cold. Reese had lied to her company about where she was going, just like she'd lied to me about what she was doing. Can I ask you something else? I said. Has Reese ever talked to you about our marriage? Tara got uncomfortable. I probably shouldn't. Please. I think my marriage is ending, and I need to know what people have been told. That's when Tara revealed something that made my hands shake with anger. She's been saying you're really controlling with money, Tara told me. That you bought this expensive RV but won't let her use it. That you hide financial information from her. That you make all the spending decisions without including her. Did she say anything else? She showed us pictures of the RV, Said you bought it just to spite her because she'd wanted to take a vacation, but you said you couldn't afford it. Made it sound like you were punishing her. Reese had been poisoning people against me for months, building a narrative that I was financially abusive so that when she filed for divorce, she'd have witnesses to back up her claims. But Tara wasn't done. The weird thing was, she continued, she kept asking us legal questions, like if someone bought something expensive during a marriage, could the spouse claim half of it? What constituted financial abuse versus just disagreeing about money? It felt like she was researching something. That weekend, I got another piece of the puzzle from my neighbor Dex. He approached me while I was checking the mail. "Hey, this might be nothing," he said, "but that guy who was at your house a couple weeks ago, he was taking pictures of your home office setup through the window." "What guy?" "Tall, dark hair, nice clothes. Reese let him in when you were gone. I saw him taking photos with his phone of your computer equipment. Seemed really focused on documenting everything." Knox had been gathering evidence of my business assets, probably to help Reese claim half their value in divorce proceedings. "Did you see what kind of car he was driving?" I asked. "Yeah. Nice BMW SUV. Had real estate company magnets on the side." That confirmed it. Knox wasn't just Reese's affair partner. He was her co-conspirator in a scheme to steal everything I owned. Sunday night, I decided to end this. I called Reese and told her I'd changed my mind about the RV. "You can take it next weekend," I said. "I realize I've been selfish about it." She was suspiciously excited. "Really? You're sure you don't mind? I want you to be happy. Take it for as long as you need." Friday evening, I parked down the street and watched as Knox arrived to help Reese load up the RV for their work retreat. I let them drive away, then followed at a distance to see where they were going. They went to a state park about 2 hours away, the same place I'd taken Reese for our anniversary 2 years earlier. Saturday morning, I drove to the park and found their campsite. I walked up to the RV and knocked. Knox answered the door in a bathrobe, clearly not expecting to see me. "Hi, Knox," I said. "I think we need to have a conversation." I pushed past him into my RV, where Reese was sitting at my custom desk in her underwear, looking like she'd seen a ghost. "So," I said, pulling out my phone and showing them the camera footage, "which one of you wants to explain the divorce planning first?" What followed was the most pathetic display of backpedaling and blame shifting I've ever witnessed. Knox immediately tried to distance himself from the scheme, claiming he'd just been listening to a friend's problems and hadn't known I was unaware of their relationship. Reese went through the full cycle: denial, anger, bargaining, and finally desperate attempts to minimize what she'd done. "It's not what it looks like," she said. "Knox was just helping me understand my rights as a spouse, by helping you steal money from our joint account and planning to steal my inheritance. That money was for legitimate expenses. Hotel rooms aren't legitimate marital expenses, Reese." I laid out everything I'd discovered. The camera footage, the bank transfers, the fake work retreat, the conversation with Tara, Knox's surveillance of my home office. All of it. "Here's what's going to happen," I told them. "Reese, you're going to transfer back every penny you stole from our joint account. You're going to sign a document giving up any claim to my RV or business equipment. And you're going to file for an uncontested divorce, where you get nothing except what you brought into the marriage. And if I don't, then I show this evidence to your employer, who will probably be interested to know you've been lying about your whereabouts and using company time to plan personal legal strategy. I also show it to the Bar Association, since Knox here seems to be practicing law without a license by advising you on divorce settlements." Knox was already heading for the door. "Reese, I can't be involved in this. This is between you and your husband." And just like that, the man she'd been planning to run away with abandoned her the moment things got complicated. The practical resolution came quickly. Reese returned the $15,000 she'd stolen, signed away any claim to my assets, and agreed to an uncontested divorce. In exchange, I didn't report the theft or expose the affair to her employer. But the personal consequences were more satisfying than any legal victory could have been. Word about the affair got out anyway. Small town. These things always do. Reese's reputation at work was destroyed when people realized how she'd been lying about her whereabouts and manipulating her co-workers. Knox lost several real estate clients when it became known that he'd been involved in a scheme to defraud someone's divorce settlement. Most importantly, I got my life back. The RV, my business, my peace of mind. I realized how much energy I'd been spending trying to make a marriage work with someone who saw me as a resource to exploit rather than a partner to love. 6 months later, I'm doing better work than ever, traveling more, and building relationships with people who choose me for who I am rather than what they can get from me. The RV serves its original purpose now. It's my mobile office and my freedom, not someone else's getaway car for their schemes. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is discovering who someone really is before they can finish destroying your life. Reese and Knox showed me exactly who they were, and I'm grateful I saw it before they could complete their plan. Edit. For those asking if I feel bad about how hard the consequences hit them, no, I don't. They spent months planning to rob me blind while pretending to love me. They earned everything that happened to them. Edit 2. The RV is still my mobile office, and business has never been better. Turns out that when you're not distracted by someone actively plotting against you, you can focus on what actually matters. Edit 3. To anyone dealing with a spouse who's being secretive about money or making weird demands about shared assets, trust your instincts, document everything, and remember that someone who truly loves you won't spend months planning to destroy your financial life.